Porsche 911 or Porsche 718. Here the 911 convertible versus the Boxster. But the same will also count for the 911 Coupe and the 718 Cayman. The base question is, which one is the real, the true Porsche? Which one is better? Which one is maybe more suitable to you? 911 or the 718? A very interesting comparison here today on Autogefuehl. All in exterior, interior and both driving experiences. Join us in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! As for the front comparison, you can clearly see that the 911 is a little bit wider. So here the 718, the smaller model, and you have a little bit more round shapes right here. In this new generation of the 911, they have cut it out here in the front in a more rectangular way. This is a quote of one of the past models, so a retro styling element. Same goes also for those round headlamps. This is really characteristically for the 911. Here they also are not exactly round headlamps, and to me that's why also the 911 looks a little bit better in the front. That's my personal opinion. Headlamp technology here start with xenon in the front and optional LED, and on the 911 LED is standard and optional, the one you can see here, the matrix LED. Which one do you like better in the front? 4.38 m versus 4.52 m in length. That's 172 inches versus 178 inches. So it's not such a big of a length difference. So it's more the width difference where we could clearly see that the 911 is actually the bigger car. You can see that the front hood is a little bit lower overall with the 718. 20-inch wheels here. There are also smaller ones available. However, 20-inch is minimum for the 911. And here we also have, with the new generation, mixed tires. So 20-inch in the front, 21-inch in the rear at this vehicle. I love this spider design we have here. It's also somewhat retro style. Really love it. Here we got the Boxster T for you today. This is a, let's say, version which is trimmed very low down, but then again you can add a lot of extras definitely. But I think it's a very interesting comparison also to have the convertibles here, because there you can see even better that right here in the rear with the 911 the whole rear is so much larger than with the Boxster. So especially this area here, it has a very thick rear. You know what I mean. And here everything is now rather slimmer. It looks a little bit more basic, so to say, but so interesting to see both cars at the very same time. I'm so much looking forward to your feedback. Also very interesting to take a look at those here from the rear. By the way, those ones here are real exhaust for the Boxster. And those tips here on the rear, this is just a beauty exhaust. The real exhaust is on the inside. The overall styling here, definitely more massive with the 911. What I personally like is this round style. It looks a little bit more seamless, so to say. We see more design elements right here. But at the other hand, this one here looks a little bit sleeker and sportier. Interesting also here that those tail lamps, they are in this dual horizontal fin design and is carried out over here to the Porsche badge. Very interesting. But also lovely that we have this light strip at the 911 that goes all the way through. And one of you guys actually told me recently, when you look at this structure right here, this could be 1-1 for 11, and then those fins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 11. 911. That's also a very interesting design element, isn't it? So which one is your favorite here from the rear? And since we cannot take a look at those engines directly, let me talk about those one briefly. Here for the Boxster, downsized. If it's not the Spider or the GT4, the new versions you've recently also seen here, there you have the naturally aspirated 4-liter engine, pretty massive. But the normal versions, either a 2-liter turbo engine, here also for the Boxster T with 300 horsepower, or there's also the 2.5-liter one for the S and for the GTS, then with 350 or 365 horsepower. And depending on the version, here 4 seconds, so about 4.5 seconds or 4 seconds is the acceleration figure in the GTS model, for example. And here with the 911, also both flat engines they're using, also both turbos. Here then a 3-liter engine with 6 cylinders and 450 horsepower. And the acceleration is about 3.5 seconds here in the 4S. So all-wheel drive, but it's also very with rear-wheel drive. And this one here is rear-wheel drive only. So, and about a second in the acceleration is the difference. But of course, this one here is also the heavier car. The only thing that comes close to seeing something of the engine with the 911 is this one, by the way. And it's somewhat the same than with the 718, where you can just, service the fluids and so on. But that's about it. And now we turned them rear to rear, that you get another perspective. And we also want to take a look at the roof closing process and how they look like then when they are closed. For that, I have to use the force to be able to close both roofs at the same time. Yeah, I think the force is still strong in me. So which process do you like better? And how do you prefer the cars now when they have the roof closed? Which one is your favorite? And the rear wing, adaptive rear wing comparison, a small one here for the Boxster, but you can activate it from the separate button. And here you have to go into the infotainment system with the 911, but the spoiler itself is of course a little bit bigger right there. Very interesting, this integration. Use the force, young Padawan. Well, the most important comparison for today, the trunk comparison. Yeah, that's what it's all about with driving a Porsche, isn't it? So, and interesting, here in the front, so the lower side is a little bit higher than 40 centimeters, or 43, and the high side, depending from here or here, it's about 60 centimeters, and the width in the lower end is about 65 centimeters. So you can fit some, cabin trollers in there, backpack, no problem. And what about here with the 911 now? 60, 40, 65. That's exactly the same. Very interesting. So I guess that's a tie for the moment. Well, the 718 has an additional rear trunk in the rear, and that one is the real practical one, so you can still fit a cabin trolley in here like this, or some backpacks or something, and also fluid access then to the engine. We cannot see anything else from the engine, has to be serviced from below. And the really interesting thing is here, this is an easy release, so when you close or open it, so you hit the key or from the inside or so, then it's like this, and you cannot open it just like this. Whereas the frunks on both cars, they need this special release. So I think this is the more practical approach, instead of using the frunk and also the rear bench, which we now see with the 911. And the 911 has, next to the front trunk, this rear bench. Well, it's really just emergency seating. So I've tested it a couple of times. It's a pain in the seat to take a seat right there as a tall person. It's not really possible, but you can also put those ones down here so you don't, scratch the seat or something when you want to put a bag on here or so. So you're still quite flexible. You can put more luggage in here, like, some flexible bags, for example. That would work. Now let's get inside. Here the door handles, they go up a little bit, and I think it's good to have real door handles still. You will soon see what I mean. Here again, another seat perspective right there with the nice fabric. Once more before I get inside. Of course, you sit quite low. That's totally normal for a sports car. And, you know, this seat here, it really has a nice form to keep you tight. There's also this sport bucket seat available, but that one has even less comfort. And here for the 718, there's even a base sport seat available that's a little bit less sporty than this one. So it is somehow a perfect seating position here. You are just one with the vehicle, and there's also enough space for tall people, no problem. Even if the roof would be closed, I still have, space above my head. That's no problem at all. It's just that, on long-term rides, you can get this lower back fatigue. So, for example, recently in the BMW Z4, I found that one way more comfortable, especially when driving long-term. So I really appreciate this super sporty seating position. It's perfect, but then again, yeah, it's not the most comfortable car, at least from my experience. What's your experience on that one? And the 911, you see, those door hands are usually in line with the vehicle. That's better for wind resistance, for less resistance. And when you open the car, they flip out this first stage, and then you pull them even further up, and it just feels weird. I just don't like it. I don't know. It's cool that it's in line when it's closed, but other than that, I don't know. So one more look here at those seats here. They have a similar form. All Porsche seats are somehow similar formed, but will it be different from the seating position? Of course, all electric controls right there, and both steering wheels can also be controlled electrically. Here, this electric button right there at the moment. The car is not powered. So, and here, well, the funny thing is, you feel that you would be sitting lower, but I think that's rather also because the dashboard is a little bit higher. It is somehow a little bit bigger, especially just a little bit wider. You feel that when sitting here, so the seat is a little bit wider, definitely. But still, because it has this sporty building style, you don't feel so much that you would have more room. So it's not like you sit down and say, oh, that's totally a different segment. It is a little bit different, yes. Here, for example, the A-pillar is also thicker. But I would not say, at the first experience here directly, one-to-one, that I would have more comfort in this one. Yeah, maybe a little bit more space in the width, but the seats are not more comfortable than this one. So it's, pretty much equal. But what I feel is that the seating position, the whole layout and the seat themselves, as for the sporty experience, they are really perfect with the 718. You sit down and feel one unit with the vehicle, and that's not exactly the case with this one. And now we have the direct interior comparison, starting here with the 718. This one here, the 718T, therefore we have some special features. You can see it at the inside of both doors, for example. You have those handles here, which are more basic race style. Very interesting. Then also the dashboard is not covered in animal skin, but it is soft touch, but looks quite good. Then we also have a special fabric seat here. This is also the best choice for this vehicle. Unfortunately, the rest parts here, they are not leather red, but real animal. So I think they also could have gone for leather red, then it would be completely animal free. Yeah, we know, but at least it's a big step forward, definitely. And also the steering wheel here is from Alcantara, a very nice option. You can also pick from normal 718s. Have a very good grip for that. Then you can see this is more classic style with the analog dials there. In the middle one, the big RPM. And then the right one is the digital one right there. You can also have, for example, a map view right in there. So this is quite handy. It's actually enough, and you can see them very well. The driving mode selector is right here, and it's well positioned, so you can do it very well while driving. And there's also knurling around the knob. And since the most recent facelift, there's a bigger screen right there, here with the touch, and there's also Apple CarPlay connection available. It will appear right there when the phone is connected via cable. Still a lot of hotkey buttons right there to access the map and so on. The temperature control is right here. Then either a manual gearbox or a PDK, so both is available actually. The T has more the concept of being a manual, but that one is optional here then with the PDK, and here with those buttons here for the exhaust or for the rear wing, for example, and you can open and close the roof right there. And pretty slim middle console. The analog chronometer is right there with the sports chrono pack. It's not standard for the T, but you can get it optional, and then you have those air vents that were also changed with the recent facelift. By the way, the Boxer T you can also get without the infotainment system at all to save weight, but most will probably still go with the infotainment system. And on the right side, this is also pretty classic for the Boxster or the Cayman. Here those two cup holders. They're a little bit wobbly when big balls are in there, but I mean, this is at least a chance to get some cup holders here overall in this, rather tiny cockpit. And under the middle armrest, you'll find the only connection here for your smartphone and the only possibility to charge it, because there's not an inductive charging platform. This is just for the car antenna, but here you can then recharge at least with cable and have direct connection. And at the inside of the doors here, it's just very, very slim what you can put in there. So from the 718 cockpit, we switch over to the one of the 911, and you can see it has a horizontal layout, is more stressed in that way, like a hole in there with a widescreen setup there, and also here all digital except of the analog meter in the very middle part, and the middle console in the lower area is also a little bit wider. Then this new shifting lever here, which looks like a small brown shaver, very interesting, but a nice metal knurling here also on those knobs for temperature, for example. There you can set, for example, a hotkey. This one here is to put the front end of the car higher, for example, when you're approaching a basement garage or something. The steering wheel is also new, has also those screws like in the 718 we've seen. The drive mode selectors at the same position, but looks a little bit different, also as a knurling around. But it does look somewhat similar, especially as for the steering setup, but then again you can see the width of the car is also stressed on the inside. The thing with this whole infotainment setup is, now I'm turning it on again, but now it always says battery weak, so it drains a lot of energy and sometimes it takes ages to load. That works very much quicker with the 718, for example. Here you can see how long it takes, and this is sometimes a little bit annoying. And is it maybe tech overkill in comparison to the 718? Yeah, that would be the disadvantage of this system. Big advantage is then, however, that you can actually control a lot. You can set the home screen for yourself, how you like to do it. And also when you take a look at the GPS here, for example, this widescreen has a more impressive setup. It looks quite fancy and cool, but again, it's also more complicated to control. And here on the left side then for example, also access this car menu, where then, after it loads for a while, for example, also activate the exhaust or the spoiler and so on. Very nice visualization, and you can maybe better see the map, but somehow I like the easiness also of the system of the 718. And by the way, should you hear some disturbance noises from, on audio channel, it's not our smartphones, we shut them all down. It is the infotainment system and the SIM card itself that creates those disturbing noises here on our audio channel. Storage in the 911, well, it's also quite equal to the 718. Here with a small box right there, but you cannot flip it out. And also very, very slim here next to the Burmester sound system, which, by the way, delivers a great sound. This is the difference. You can get a more sophisticated sound system here for the 911. Here, cup holders. There's one at the co-driver side. This one, is a little bit tighter than the other one. But there's just one. There's not the second one here. But for this middle cup hole here, you can pull that out. And there's also an insert where you have another cup holder here right in the middle. And last but not least, there is this armrest, very well attached, together with two USB supplies here. One of my favorite features here in the 911 is this electric wind deflector. That's pretty cool. It's such an easy and clean solution. You don't have to demount or mount anything, and it's really effective, especially when you drive at higher speeds. For example, if you think about taking it out to the motorway, then this one will play a major effect. I could do this all day. Wind cut off, wind cut down. Now we will compare the sound. We will turn on the engine, then rev it a little bit from the normal exhaust mode, then turn on the special exhaust mode on both vehicles. They both have that, so we can compare both modes on both cars and see which one sounds better. Welcome. Sorry about that. Yeah. So that happens when you are in the sport mode. Let it go from the traffic light. And you were just in the car wash and the tires and everything is still pretty wet. So that's also then basically a warning. So in the normal driving mode, this car is really calm, steady, has a lot of traction, although rear-wheel drive only. In the sport mode, the electronic stability control is drawn back. Then you have to pay attention, especially when the tires are wet. So when there's just like very dry surface and you have not been to the car wash recently, then it's still somewhat stable on the sport mode in dry roads. And there's still the Sport Plus mode, which lets you even fly the car a little bit more, but always pay attention. But the good thing about this vehicle is it has so much balance. Great Alcantara steering wheel here for today. Fabric seats also hold me tight. And this car is literally like a go-kart. So it's one of those very rare cars left which feels light and go-kart-ish. The Mazda MX-5 would be also one. Of course, way less expensive, the Mazda MX-5, than this one. But here you just feel so light and agile and you can basically attack at any time. And here, driving with open top, pure silence. This one here in the Boxster T, the 2-liter engine only. There's this 2.5 liter in the S and GTS, which makes you a half a second faster to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. This one is still at 4.7 seconds in the acceleration figure, so it's still, pretty fast. The sound is, of course, not that sonorous. But is it really a huge difference from the base Boxster to the bigger one? Yeah, of course, you have a little bit more punch in the GTS, for example. The big difference is, of course, recently we've shown you that with AJ and Michelle, where we had the 718 Spider and the GT4 came in. Those ones are really different because they have naturally aspirated engines, more displacement, but then they also don't have that turbo punch. So, and the gearing was very high. Here the gearing is actually quite short, and in normal driving, the car shifts up pretty early. But just when you do some lane change here, every lane change is pure fun. That's about this vehicle, and this actually does not change if you have the 2-liter or the 2.5-liter engine, because this car here is about this pure handling. That's the main thing about this vehicle. And when you put the sport mode in, by the way, also the exhaust mode button gets activated, and you can also do it intentionally, just the exhaust button right there. I have to take a look at the traffic light over there. Yeah, hey guys. So you can also leave it in a normal driving mode and then go still with the louder exhaust mode. It depends on, if you're not annoying anyone, then it's definitely fine. If you're just passing your neighbors, maybe you want to annoy your neighbors, depending on how nice your neighbors are. Some neighbors are super nice and some others only try to seek, war, basically. And yeah, that's how people are. Not that I would have any experience with that. Yeah. So, we go out to the countryside with this one here also. And the big question for today here is, of course, what about the difference to the 911? Yeah. So I'll because we start with this one here, go more into detail. Oh, such a pleasant experience. I mean, wow. You can take it on a racetrack at any time, and it's probably also one of the best and most fun cars on the whole market for the racetrack, I can tell you, because it's so neutral, so well balanced with this midship engine concept. And that's also one of the major differences to the 911. This one here just feels more balanced. This one here is, to me, the true 911 from, back then, what it was intended to be used for, really lightweight, small, agile, great in handling. And this fun has not really ceased when they went for the downside. And yeah, you can surely argue for and against it. And I also think that the bigger displacement engines before were better, yes. The only advantage here is that you can drive them very, very silently if you like. Here, for example, when I'm in normal driving mode, you hear nothing. That can be an advantage, like for your environment, neighbors, and so on. And you can also drive it with about 8 liters consumption, fuel consumption, 100 kilometers. That's about 29 mpg US, 35 mpg UK. Whereas the 911 is right more over there, about 13 liters retest recently. Wow, and that's about like massive difference when you're below 20 mpg or something. Wow, that's so big difference there. But at any time, you also have, for example, this special button here, Sport Response, and then you get a special boost for 20 seconds. You can also deactivate it again. Yeah, I mean, it's another feature where you can play around with. Also, just some electronics there. Really interesting. But the greatest thing about this car is you can drive it open top, enjoy it, especially in summertime. And I mean, I could go slalom all day. Now, no one is in front, no one behind us. Wow. Do you see that on camera? How the steering is 1-to-1 with the tires and the road, and everything is aligned. Road, car, and driver are so well connected. That's what I really love about this vehicle. As for the wind that comes in the cabin, of course, we have the windows up here when we're filming to give you a more calm experience. As for the sound, it is rather a summertime convertible, so if you want an all-season convertible, those mid-size convertibles are better because they keep the wind rather out of the vehicle there. And of course the comfort, those seats are great for the racetrack, they hold you tight. And I also really like that we got the fabric seats today. But the seat forms itself, there are different ones available. I'm really lucky that we don't have those bucket seats in this car, because otherwise I could throw away my lower back already right now. But I really have to say, also if you compare it to the BMW Z4 Roadster driven earlier, this one here is really not the most comfortable one. It might depend from body to body, I can just tell my experience, and the Boxster is always, and the same to the Cayman, very, very uncomfortable for me, especially when you're on longer motorway runs. It's driving more than like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I start to feel it. And with the Z4, with the all-new generation of the BMW Z4, by the way, I could drive this car for hours and hours with no problem. And really looking forward then again today, when we directly change to the 911, how will this play out? Because I've been driving the 911 really a lot of times, different generations. And also the Boxster here, or the Cayman, a lot of times. But the interesting thing is really when you're driving directly next to each other, you can even better transport that feeling in the differences. Go back to the sport mode. Just a little throttle notch from time to time. Yeah, suspension here, you can maybe also pick that up. It's quite rough. We got the PASM here, the active suspension management by Porsche. And the T model is of course set on the very sporty note. It definitely transports some more rough and bass feeling, although as I said earlier, That's pure Autogefuehl, pure car feeling, definitely. So lovely. So as I said earlier, this T model here, you know, they spec it down and then they spec it up again by extras, so it doesn't make too much sense. But you know, I don't need the animal skin surface here on the dashboard. Those fabric handles here at the side are also quite racy. That's pretty nice. And then the Alcantara steering wheel and the fabric seats together. Yeah, you know, you could have wished maybe a manual gearbox for the manual gearbox fans. I have to say, sometimes it's a cool experience with a manual gearbox. Yes. However, it's also more comfortable with the PDK. And if you think about performance, the PDK will also do a better job. It's better in the acceleration, better in the overall performance and so on. So there's also a lot what speaks for the PDK for this dual clutch transmission. Oh, that's a nice custom Toyota paint there. So we're getting on the motorway. And I want to also tell you something about closed top. Here we go. You can open and close up to 50 kilometers an hour. So of course it's more silent than in here. It's not the most silent car. That's also not what it's meant to be. Now some acceleration, 60 to 100. Let's go. That's already it. Wow. I mean, wow. And this is where you feel that's also different to 911. In both, you have a very good acceleration, yes. But here you just feel lighter, you know, you feel that less mass is being accelerated. And this is something pretty cool, you know. So if you want the best handling and the sportiest ride, it will always be the Boxster and the Cayman. Sorry 911 fans for that. But I mean, looking forward to, you know, both cars have their pros and cons. That's why we exactly do this test here today. And this is also, you know, an everyday driving life test. We've done several track runs also with this one. So we've got a lot of different other episodes. You can check those out. And then you can, there's even one episode where, I think we were at the airfield with the first 780 lounge and did some drifting and donuts there and so on. So if you want this experience as well, check those videos later. Here now, motorway, 100 kilometers an hour. Works with a closed top here, it's also decently silent, it's okay. And then the adaptive cruise control is built in here, so it keeps the distance to the car in front of me. And I can relax a little bit more. So the assistance systems are well done. And there was no one coming from behind now, but here, like this area, this flashes red is a blind spot monitor. So it's great that even such a sports car has those features that you can rely on nice safety systems. Now, sport mode once again. There's one of my favorite roundabouts, and I don't even have to reduce the speed. It's like 50, 60. Oh, pedestrians. Do they want to cross? No, they don't. Wow. I mean, when you go into some corners, it's sometimes absolutely insane. Because with other cars, you would, get in the brakes, then take the corner with 20 or 30 kilometers an hour or something. And here, actually, I mean, you can take any corner at any speed, almost. Using a shifting pedal is always a lot of fun too. Wow, and this car is so light, it's also good on the brakes. Wow. It's pure amazing. I mean, sometimes you really think about, wait a minute, did I just take this corner with 70 kilometers an hour? It's like, wake me up, what's going on? So, awesome handling, awesome driving, one of the best handling cars overall, but definitely lack of comfort, that would be the disadvantage here of the Boxster. And in this T version, I really like the, this base rough concept, even though this one here is backed up again, but still, such a lovely, fun vehicle. And now to the 911 here as the 4S convertible. That means, and it's also interesting as for a concept comparison, because here we also have, oh, there's the Boxster. We have the four-wheel drive, the all-wheel drive, and it is still very much rear-wheel drive dominant. I can also see it here in a special gauge, where I have just a little notch on the front wheels and the most definitely on the rear wheels, and that will remain the same. Just when you, for example, use the launch control, really max it out, then there will also be some more on the front wheels. But especially for the rear-wheel drive cars, there is this new wet mode for the new 911 generation, and that one then gives you more traction in, let's say, those rainy conditions. So, also driving with open top, and I have to say, I wouldn't say that the 911 gets less wind inside. Maybe I think that the 911 even gets a little bit more wind inside than the 718. That's my, spontaneous feel for that. Very interesting. It also handles very well the steering input right here. See here how it is also one-to-one steering input to what the tires are doing on the road. That's really good. Oh, when I touch here but behind the steering wheel, it makes a little rattling sound. Interesting. So that didn't happen with the 718 right now. But the steering wheel also with a good size. Wow, it's a lot of fun, but you feel that the car is a little bit heavier, just in comparison to the 718, of course. There are more assistance systems in this vehicle. For example, when I get to the side of the road, then the system already is warning me I'm close to the side of the road. So the 718 in this case is a little bit, basic, you could say, but also more purist. So it really depends, of course, on what you really prefer. But definitely it's a lot of fun to drive this car. It has such a stable handling. That's really very, very cool. And we also have more power. I'll soon also get to a road where we can drive a little bit faster. The suspension actually is a little bit more comfortable than the 718. So seating position wise, you feel it would be sitting lower, but I think it's more about everything else around you is a little bit higher. But the seating position itself, I would not say that it's more comfortable here in the 911 than in the 718, but the suspension is more forgiving. That's, something. So now I switch to the sport mode that we can rev it up a little bit more, and let's accelerate out and also see how this all-wheel drive behaves when we accelerate out of a corner. Wow, nice sound. That's of course different, so definitely better sound from the 911, and you have a more aggressive punch. On paper it's just a second or second and a half faster, but together with this sound it actually feels much faster. Wow. But I think it's really a little bit sound influence as well, and it just feels more aggressive as for the acceleration. I'm not sure if you could pick that up on camera. It was very interesting that when I really accelerated it out, there was definitely way more torque than also on the front, not more than in the rear, but more than before was transported to the front wheels. And that gave us a very good acceleration. The all-wheel drive models are faster than the rear-wheel drive models because you can just get more traction to the ground. I feel that I have to speak up here a little bit more as for the wind noise, by the way. Not sure if you can also compare that on camera. I have the impression that the 718 was more silent on the interior, both sound-wise and also wind noise-wise. It's also very interesting. We've driven those cars a couple of times, but never like directly after each other, and that's definitely super helpful. So I don't want to be stuck behind that car, so we just turn around. And I also want to show you another feature, because here with the 911, there's a very sophisticated rear view camera. It even turns a little bit, you can see here on the right side. That's very interesting. And then I'll drone you from above. There is also a rear view camera available for the 718. It is standard in the US because it's mandatory for all US vehicles meanwhile, but not standard here in Germany. Yeah, I mean, this sound experience, that would be one reason to go for the 911. With the 718 it's a little bit better if you, for example, have the 2.5 liter in the GDS, yes. But definitely the sound experience, acceleration wise, that is what you definitely get more with the 911, especially in the sports mode. And maybe if you have seen it as I was accelerating out, there was the symbol for a little bit of, wheel slip, but it was even out quite well. So you can remain very much in control of this vehicle. So it feels a little bit larger while driving, especially because everything is built up higher around you. You feel somewhat, let's say, more protected by the car because there's a little bit more car around you. Very interesting picture also with those flying leaves, definitely. If that's a good or bad thing for you, that is really up to you, because you can argue that the 718 has a little bit more go-kart feeling. You feel a little bit more like sitting on the vehicle, if you know what I mean. And here you have more feeling sitting in the vehicle. And again, that's not what you say like this is bad or this is good. It's more what you really prefer, what you like. Yeah, especially in those alleys here now when there's a round of a lot of trees and so on, there's some echo. Oh, it's starting to pick up the rain a little bit, but I always say when you drive in a convertible, it starts to rain. You just have to drive a little bit faster, that you push the rain forward with your windscreen. It depends just, on how strong the rain will actually get. So far we are still okay. One problem is here with our side-mounted camera in the 718. When you close the roof, the window goes down just a little bit. And yeah, Thomas is already starting to have fun next to me. Double Thomas team today. But here we have to stand still and close the roof actually. So, and probably that's what we should do right now, because whoa, even the cyclists are standing still now because of the rain. Yeah, that's probably a good idea, fellow. Oh, nice super motorbike. And yeah, let's demount that camera for a second. Live on tape here, Autogefuehl. And let's close the roof right here. Whoa. Usually you would continue on driving with about 50 kilometers an hour maximum. That's both with both vehicles. But you see here, the window went all the way down. And hey, why don't they go up? There we go. So nope. Now the windows go up again. Let's keep on driving, because that's what we have here for. Let's see. Now we have everything closed, besides of the small rear windows. There it is. There it is. And there it is. Yeah. So you have to activate a button here at the side to be able to close them, to pick them, because they didn't want to put 4 buttons, so they put 3 buttons. But I wonder that should go up actually together with the with the roof, which should actually work. Very strange. Well, anyways, different conditions here now when it's raining. That would be something also for the all-wheel drive, but the road is still relatively dry. One thing, by the way, to reduce the wind turbulence, I forgot that, there's this electric wind deflector. You can put that up. Not right now, but that definitely helps, especially when you drive, for example, on the motorway. Now interesting, because the road is getting very rough and the suspension still mastered it really very well. It also depends on if you're in a normal mode or in a sport mode. Here in normal mode, suspension is a little bit more forgiving, somewhat soft, but still, it always remains sporty. And when you go to the sports mode, here we go, then you get more connection to the road, feels a little bit better to control, but of course stiffer, so you will also definitely lose some comfort. But you also get nice sound when you sit on the inside, so yeah, that's definitely well done as for the sound design. But the more I drive also, I really have to say, comfort-wise, again, you do not gain anything with the 911 in comparison to the 718. Even if suspension is maybe a little bit more forgiven, still how the seating position has more influence on that. And both cars are definitely a lot of fun to drive, no doubt about that. This one here maybe feels a little bit more sophisticated in a way, and you have more things to do. But definitely the 718 is a better handling machine, and everything set on a very high niveau, on a very high level, because this one is already a good handling machine. But the 718 is just the better handling machine. And in the final conclusion, I will also tell you more about prices. This will, also be, very interesting, very crucial. When we have the roof closed here, by the way, it's relatively silent as for the wind noise, but it's a little bit better than the predecessor. But what's going on underneath you, like from the road surface? In the predecessor generation, it was even a little bit rougher. That when you had some very small stones on the road, something, and was going up from below the car, you could always hear them. Here it's still somewhat, but not as bad as before. But I feel that this is even a little bit less in the 718, So, and also I feel that this one here actually has, from some parts, not only here at the steering wheel, some plastic parts and some, has a little bit more rattling noise than with the 718. That might be something. This one here is a very, very new car. The 718 is now a very refined model. There was a facelift. Everything that possibly could go wrong probably happened at one time, and they knew it. They have fixed everything, So sometimes it's good also to buy an existing vehicle than a really all new model, or maybe to wait 1 or 2 years or something. Well, there's a dog, so I'll go to the normal mode again and have it rather silent. The dog is here very well, better than us, way better than us. So that's also good that you have the possibility, go back to the normal mode, and it's quite normal again from the sound. And now we also turn back again because we want to go to our initial location. That's also quite good because then you can test the rear view camera again, see how's the visibility all around. Here, of course, what pillar is it? There's no real B pillar, so is it then the B pillar in the rear, or is it the C pillar? Is it A and C pillar, or is it A and B pillar here? That's a tough question. We've got to have a discussion about that. But definitely, there's a little bit, At least someone laughs about my jokes. Thank you so much. I hope you guys do.
It is a C pillar. C pillar.
Okay, Thomas votes for A and C pillar then.
Yeah.
Well, then that's what it is. So, you cannot see that well through the C pillar. That's pretty thick then overall. That's a little bit better as for the visibility in Boxster, I think. And, well, the thing that astonished me the most, I was expecting from this test that, the 718 is probably the sportier, the lighter, the more handling car and so on, but that the 911 definitely delivers more comfort and more, let's say, total sophistication in the ride, and also as for the noise comfort and so on. But I'm really surprised when I test it now directly after each other that it's not the case. So there's more fancy infotainment system. Some of the buttons are probably more coast intensive, but then when I take this part here, the steering wheel, or some other rattling noises that come here when we go over some bad roads, I have at the moment the feeling that the 718 is the more refined model. And that might be something, again, because this is the beginning of the life cycle and the 718 is rather towards the end of the life cycle, that can play actually a major role. Not exactly sure that might be the reason for that, but we can just, present you what we find here, what we are experienced with the car. So both very interesting, great sports cars, great handling. But if you ask me right now, and no matter the price, which one do I want to keep for driving tomorrow to have the most fun? Sorry 911, sorry Mr. Icon, it's the 718. And now to our conclusion for today, 718 versus 911. And I really hope you enjoyed it. We took the convertible versions to give you this summer feeling also today. Well, here the 718 starting with the exterior. It is not as characteristic as the Porsche as the 911. The 911, the icon of course, with the round headlamps. That's why I was also so much rage when they had this one generation where it was not exactly round. However, you can see still the Porsche DNA also with the 718 without doubt. From the front, the 911 is my design favorite. As for the side profile, the 718 looks sleeker. It is also a little bit slimmer and shorter, but just a little shorter, but also not as wide, especially as the new generation as the 911. But there is not so much size difference as you might expect. The rear is very voluminous with the 911. It has very, distinct design elements, but it also, especially with the convertible, stands out. If you look at it from the side, for example, there overall the 718 looks, somehow, on the one hand you could say more like a toy mobile, like a toy car. On the other hand, the 911 is also, has more fluent design. And so you can argue both, for both cars actually. Overall, I'm not exactly sure. I like both from design, definitely. I would say from the front the 911, but from everything together, probably the 718. What about you? Interior design is, of course, somewhat standard for a Porsche. This one here looks more modern with 911, also more horizontal stress. More infotainment used in there, but I think it's easier done in there. This is all I need, a proper GPS and also Apple CarPlay connection. Yeah, Android Auto would be better too if they offered that, but Porsche did not have an agreement with them yet. Seating comfort-wise, there are more non-animal skin choices for the 718. That's better here. Then the seats themselves, they are not too different, I think. A little bit wider in the 911. You have a little bit more room on the inside on the 911 because the car is wider. But the comfort itself, I don't found, at least for me, that there was a big difference between both cars. Maybe a little bit in favor of the 911, but not that you would say it's a totally different segment. Yeah, this one is a sports car or a coupe convertible, and this one is a GT. So on paper they are in different segments, but it's not that you would feel a major difference when sitting inside. The infotainment system on the 911 can be a little bit overwhelming, so I would say for a sporty car, it is maybe a little bit overkill as for the stuff you can do. So I like the more simplistic approach with the 718, especially with the 718T. I think it's a very interesting approach that you reduce a little bit to the max. But of course, the problem here is that the 718T model is reduced to the max, and then you can add all options again. And that also leads us to the pricing and driving experience, because driving-wise, this one here is the ultimate driving machine. Yes, this one here also drives very well. We have driven it on the racetrack. It handled so extremely well, especially in this new generation. And also suspension is a little bit more comfortable in this new generation. But then if you think about this one here, midship engine concept, the weight balance is better, the overall handling of the car, this is the true Porsche. This is the original idea. It is one of the best handling cars overall. The 911 also handles very good, but rear engine, so a little bit different from the balance. And it can feel, this one feels bulky in comparison to this one in driving. Whereas it doesn't feel bulky in comparison to any other car. But that shows how agile this one is. So, driving-wise, I would always go for this one, because you take a seat and that's the driving machine. I don't care about anything else. Here you take a seat and oh yeah, let's get along with the system. I need to learn that for a couple of hours. And then, yeah, it drives very well, but, and so on. And then, but about the pricing. So you can get a Boxer for like 65k or something in Germany, 718T, then about 10k more, and the test vehicle right there with more options tends towards 80,000. Yeah, that's already very expensive. BMW Z4 is about 10 to 20k less depending on the spec. Yeah, that's already something. But then this one, 911, if you pick the convertible, at least like 120k or something. Then the 4S convertible, so this one also with all-wheel drive. It's of course a major difference. You can get it for this, not for that one. Yeah, that goes towards the 140k. And then this very test vehicle with all the options, 180,000. Seriously? And then 180 versus 80. To me, that becomes super clear that this one is our winner of the test. I would rather get two of those than one of this in this case. So price performance wise, a clear winner for today. So many different arguments, so many different aspects. You can, argue pro and con. This was my personal opinion, and also the factual side I've stated. So please, for you now, the task, connect all the objective stuff I stated, and also the opinion stuff. Then I want to hear your opinion right there. This is a lot to discuss about. Let's start it, and please also tune in next time. Thank you so much for being with us.